Hello everybody, welcome back to the shelf. I feel like I haven't been here in a while, but I want to go back to my roots today and I want to do some writing content. Right now I'm on like the final draft of my novel. I'm getting some people to read it again and beta reading and stuff before I announce it as officially polished and I decide what I want to do about publication. So that's all very exciting. But today I want to kind of reminisce on how my writing has evolved over the years. I've been writing what you could loosely call novels for quite an amount of years now, probably from when I was about 12 or 13, and I am now 19. I've always loved reading my old writing videos, but I focused a lot on the writing that I wrote when I was a kid, like very young. I've always wanted to read this manuscript I have. I did it as a part of like a NaNoWriMo challenge, and I was convinced that this was like a literary masterpiece. Looking back, it's kind of trash. So I've always kind of wanted to do a reading of it on the channel, but I wasn't sure how interested people were going to be in me reading like a whole like 20,000, however many words, 1,000 draft this thing is. So I figured today it would be quite a bit of fun to read my first ever manuscript that I wrote when I was about 13 in year 7, and we're just going to read the first chapter of it, just to give you a little taste of what my writing was like. And then we are going to read the first like proper novel that I wrote, which I wrote between the ages of about 14 to 16. We're going to be reading the 16-year-old draft, because that one is at least a little bit polished, and I will cringe a little less. And finally, I'm going to read to you the first chapter of my current novel, which is something that I would actually consider to be decent work. So this first ever proper writing project that I ever did at a very young age, it was called The Nameless. And I don't think I'm going to tell you any more than that. We're just going to jump straight in. It starts off with what's like technically a prologue and then goes into the first chapter. We might read both and just combine them into one. Alright gang, let's get into this. This is The Nameless. Ryan yawned for the millionth time and continued driving to work. Even though he was constantly hearing his parents' words of how great his job was and their pride, his heart wasn't in the construction industry. Where it truly lay, he didn't know. If that isn't the most thrilling start to a novel you've ever heard of, we meet Ryan, who's a construction worker, and just does it because he doesn't know what else to do. Intriguing. He drove up to the construction site, and it looked as if he was the only one there. Abandoned machinery and dusty paths lay before him as the scaffolding climbed up the side of the building. You can see I was trying to go like really hard on the description, but rather than summoning imagery, it just kind of like doesn't make sense. He jogged into the half-completed building to see if anyone else was there. He swung around the corner to see a young girl lying across the construction stairs, seemingly asleep. I don't know what construction stairs are, but stairs on a construction site, I guess. She wasn't in any uniform and he didn't recognize her. She had long blonde hair that went down to her waist and a slim figure. She looked young, maybe only 16 or 17. He slowly approached her. He shook her shoulder. "Miss?" he said. The girl made no response. She was clearly unconscious. He called out for help. Bro, this is all just statements. She had blonde hair. He shook her shoulder. She was unconscious. Shake her up a little bit. Eventually, after his third cry, Matt came running down the stairs. "Rye, what's wrong?" he asked. You're just supposed to know who Matt is, I guess. There's a girl here. I think she's unconscious. Matt came over and looked at the girl. He checked her pulse and other vital signs, which Ryan felt stupid for not doing. "She's fine," Matt reassured him. "Call an ambulance, though." A few other workers had pulled up and gathered around and were looking. Even the boss came out of his office to sneak a few looks in between, telling everyone to calm down and that there was work to be done. They're on a construction site, and the boss is apparently in his office? Ryan had just started to look through her jacket pocket for some kind of identification when the girl started to stir. Ryan lost his balance, dust fuming up around him. She panned her head around, taking in her surroundings. "Where am I?" she murmured. Okay, let me just reenact what that would realistically look like. "Where am I?" "Are you okay?" he asked. Her breathing intensified even more. "What's happening?" she asked. She sat up straighter, Ryan taking his hands away. "Why don't I remember anything?" "Could you tell me your name?" The girl shook her head. "I don't remember it." The ambulance pulled up. "Please," she pleaded, "just tell me what's going on." I don't... He felt hopeless on what to do. The paramedics came and sat down with her. Everything was a blur for Ryan. Next thing he knew, they were taking away in the ambulance while she was kicking and screaming. All Ryan could do was stand there dumbly with his boss yelling at him to get to work already. Literally, it's all just statements. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Like, it's like, I feel like that's one of the hardest things to learn to do with writing, is like, to describe rather than to tell. So to sum it up, guy rocks up to work. There's a girl unconscious there. They call an ambulance. She wakes up, says she can't remember anything. The ambulance takes her away. What a thrilling start to the story. My biggest critique, right, of this little prologue thing, this introduction to Ryan, right? Ryan isn't like a character in the book. He's in this prologue and then never discussed again, really. The person who is the main character, or one of the main characters, is the girl who woke up. Would it not make more sense, be more thrilling, to make it from the perspective of someone waking up with no memory of how they got there or who they are? But now that you're enthralled by all that, let me introduce you to Chapter 1, The Detective and the Nameless. Detective Caleb Bridges walked into the interrogation room of the New South Wales Police Department to face a nervous-looking girl sitting on a hard plastic chair. Detective Bridges took the seat opposite to the girl. Kayla had never been happy with her appearance, naturally tanned. Naturally tanned? Just means she has a suntan? This was the first time she was talking to the girl in person since she was found 2 days ago. The detective sat down on the uncomfortable chair, facing an uncomfortable-looking girl. Why is there so much chair description? Hard plastic chair, uncomfortable chair. Maybe focus less on chair description and more on making character descriptions that make sense. Yes, I'm just here to ask a few questions. That's all everyone's been doing, the girl responded, sounding bored. Asking questions. The detective ignored this. Tell me, Detective Bridge. Is it Bridges or Bridge? Because there's no consistency. What's the last thing you remember? She sighed as if sick of the question. A bunch of construction workers leaning over me, acting all shocked like they'd never seen another human before. She's edgy all of a sudden. Nothing before you woke up at the construction site at Bondi. Nothing, the girl said. Not even a name or anyone else's. Not even a name. Her voice seems sad and full of sorrow. Will I have to name myself? She says, generally curious. I think that word was supposed to be genuinely curious, not generally curious. Her emotions have flipped 3 times consecutively. So she's bored. She's sick of asking questions. I don't even remember my name. She's sad and full of sorrow. Will I have to name myself? Curiosity. We're jumping all over the shop here. There doesn't need to be dialogue tags after everything. We know there's 2 people. I'm sure we can work out whether it's the detective or the girl. Other than the weird construction dudes and the paramedics that ask too many questions and the police officers and the detectives who are bombarding me with even more, that was a mouthful. Put a comma in there somewhere. What if I were to tell you you weren't the only one with no memory? We flew the boy in 2 days ago and he's waiting outside the door. Would you like to meet him? She asked. The girl nodded vigorously. Listen, there's more of the first chapter. I don't know if I can do it. Jump to the boy who was found. The perspective in this changes constantly. I'll just read you the last line of the chapter then. The 2 of you aren't the only ones. There have been 4 other reported people like you. They woke up in random places all over the country with absolutely no memory. Dun dun dun! And Thus, The Nameless. There we go, that's the first chapter we'll be reading today. Now on to the second. This book that I wrote, it meant so much to me at the time. I put years of work into this. It was gonna be like a 4-book series, all revolving around people who saved the multiverse. Like, there were a lot of really cool things about this. But I have this note written in this notebook where I did all the planning for this series. And it's this big, like, letter to my future self where it's like, don't give up on this book, you know. It means so much to me. You can make it work when you have the skills, you know. Let it see the light of day. And now, rather than, I don't know, fixing it up and publishing it like 16-year-old me wanted me to do, I'm just gonna read the first chapter and roast it on a YouTube video. Oh, I forgot to even tell you what it was called. This first book was called A World Beyond. Yes, A World Beyond. It was called World of Darkness for quite a while. Chapter 1, The Woman on the Train. When I first stepped onto the train, I didn't know where I was going. I knew I wanted to go somewhere different, but decided to wave the decision away until later. The longer I sat on the humid train, the more I wanted to get off. My gloves stuck to my fingers, and more people continued to board the train, including 2 teenage boys with a Bluetooth speaker. I sighed. I rarely got to listen to music, but I doubted they'd be playing the type of music I liked. She's not like other girls. The writing, there's a pretty big jump, I must say. It's not that bad. In the midst of ignoring the noise around me, tapping out a familiar beat with my fingers, I barely noticed the woman who came and sat down next to me. Hey. I ignored the voice. She sounded like someone who was simply trying to be friendly. I didn't like people like that. Already going ham with the semicolons. Listen, if you learn one thing about me as a writer, I love a good semicolon. But I've had to learn to like draw back. You can't just constantly use semicolons. Just make it 2 sentences. This is from a time where I just relied on semicolons, so there's going to be a whole lot. They probably saw how young I was, saw my stained clothes, my 2 skinny arms and sad look, and thought I needed talking to. I thought otherwise. I'm charming, by the way. Okay, this is the thing we need to acknowledge. The one thing with this book that I needed to just suck it up and change was this character's name. I don't know why, but 14-year-old me named her Charmin, which is like a weird mix of like Charmander and a toilet paper brand. Like, I needed like an otherworldly name, and for some reason, that's what I picked, with no further thought. And now, it just got stuck like that. And I hate the name, but it's what we were rolling with. I couldn't work out if she had said charmin or charming. Either word was odd. Her expression was neutral, though her eyes darted over me like she was examining a parasite under the microscope. I don't think you can say her expression was neutral and then say she was like over-analyzing me. Kind of conflicting. My eyes lingered on the blue markings on her face. They looked painted on, a series of swirls and triangles. I looked up to her brunette hair which hung just over her shoulders. The part of her hair, uneven hair. Maybe this isn't as polished as I thought. Where are you going? She asked me. I didn't answer the question. I hoped she would give up on whatever she was trying to get out of me soon. There's a pause before she continued. Trains are odd, aren't they? All these people crammed in together, all with their own stories and problems, yet no one else on the train knows what they are. Everyone's going different places for different reasons. Some are important reasons, others not. When I got off the train, I'll be looking for a good place to eat. But when you get off the train, a smile spread over her face as she looked over me, a chill racing down my spine. I think you're destined for great things, Rowena. Ooh, little train metaphor. I froze. She knew my name. How the hell did she know my name? Was she a cop looking for me? I had been right. This woman, Charmin, wanted something from me. I needed to think pragmatically. You can tell that I heard the word pragmatic, and I was like, ooh, that sounds fancy. I'm gonna use it. I stepped over her legs, grateful for the moment of the train slowing. I waited behind the 2 boys with the speaker, waiting impatiently A lot of waiting impatiently for the doors to slide open, instead racing through the train's open doors. Someone caught my wrist as I stepped over the gap. Hey! It was the same woman. My heart raced at how close she was, and I tugged away from her, gasping in surprise. That sentence sounds more like it should be like in a romance scene, which is not their relationship in the slightest. Like, if I read that in a different tone, my heart raced at how close she was, and I tugged away from her, gasping in surprise. Like, I'm not gonna hurt you, she attempted to reassure. I found nothing assuring in her. Then let me go. I kicked at her leg and she let go of me. How long is this first chapter? Jeez. This first chapter is actually way longer than I thought it was, so I might stop there. You can really tell that I'd been reading like a lot of YA at this point, a lot of like Mortal Instruments, like person from the other world comes to bring them into the new world, and it's very City of Bones. The plot is like a little loose, it's a little weird at this point in the book, but writing-wise, there is definitely an improvement. But like surprisingly, I thought I was going to be cringing a lot at the dialogue, because I remember like I made her like sassy at the time and I thought it was just going to be terrible, but like it worked surprisingly well. So go young me. You did all right. All right, guys. Now we're on to the big guns. I mean, why not? Why not just read my book to people if they want to hear it? So this book is multiple POVs, so you're going to be hearing just one of the characters today. This is a science fiction novel, sci-fi survival, I feel like is the most fitting way to put it. This has been 2 to 3 years worth of work, and honestly, if I start reading this and I find a mistake, I might just rampage. I think I'm just gonna like read this straight. I don't think I'm gonna really have any commentary. I hope not. Let's go. Every day felt hotter than the last. Every morning as Phoebe's eyelids peeled themselves open, she felt another drop of sweat on her skin, another degree of heat, another layer of humidity weighing down both the air of the prison cell and her lungs. Whether or not it was actually hotter was hard to determine. Perhaps in the brief break sleep provided, she'd forgotten how insufferable living was. The alarm above the thin bed frame flashed repetitively, casting red light across the dim cell. Phoebe fanned her damp shorts away from her skin before struggling to tie up her dark hair with a piece of string she'd collected. The result was a loose ponytail, which didn't stop her hair from simmering against her neck. She missed the lightness of having her head shaved, but inmates weren't given razors, and she was in this prison because she'd earned her suffering. There were 4 minutes until she would be taken to the dining hall to eat. The 4 minutes were spent using the toilet that never flushed properly, washing her hands and face in the small trickle of water from the tap. It felt like there was even less water than the previous day. She almost always avoided her reflection in the cracked mirror, avoiding the sight of a sunken face, cracked lips, and dry skin. A reflection only served the purpose of reminding her of Appa, her eyes carrying a similar expression to his. Appa's face was one worn with work, his journey from Korea to America a tale he struggled to tell Phoebe. It's one of the few memories she had of him, focus attentive as she'd struggled to lip-read his words. By age 7, her hearing was almost completely gone. The usual smooth-faced android stood in the cell doorway. The androids here were old models, by at least 3 generations, but they still carried typical android features. Smooth, white metal exteriors, anatomy mimicking that of a human, their faces featureless except when displaying glowing holographic messages. The android's face displayed the usual message in blue writing. Time for breakfast, inmate 1031. Phoebe never bothered reading it anymore. Phoebe came into line with the other prisoners. Some nearby cellmates she knew the names of, but most were empty faces to her. Inmates on this floor were discouraging from communicating, mostly due to fear of revolt. The tired faces and slumped bodies surrounding her indicated everyone was too tired, too broken, for anything so bold. Phoebe struggled to think of the last time she had a conversation with somebody. When was the last time she had spoken? They came down the stairs of the upper cell block, the line of prisoners flowing like water through a pipe, the strict routine leading them only where they were permitted to go. Their bodies smelled so strongly of sweat she could taste it in the back of her throat. A sudden weight came down on her shoulder, stopping her mindless walking. The android had its mechanical hand on her shoulder, looking aside from the other inmates. She followed its line of sight to a woman standing aside from the row of prisoners. Phoebe had never seen them before. They couldn't be one of the wardens, not with their dirt-free clothes, dark skin around their eyes lightly adorned with gold, and dark hair in an intricate braided updo. Their presence in the dingy lights of Highland Girls' Prison was like seeing a diamond amongst rocks. The android clasped Phoebe's back and ushered her towards the woman. What would they want with her? Their lips moved. Phoebe Weiss? Were they some type of enforcer? Phoebe had many experiences with enforcers, being arrested by them, kicked to the ground by them, watching them read her sentence. They all wore uniforms. They all carried badges, guns at their waist. This woman had none of these. My name is Commander Wilcox. You can refer to me with she or her pronouns. I'd like to have a private conversation with you regarding an urgent matter. Was Commander an enforcer rank? She swallowed the lump in her throat. Okay. Commander Wilcox turned neatly, leading her to another part of the prison, one far from inmates and androids. Phoebe would be alone with Wilcox. This could be the type of conversation where she ended up dead. Wilcox led Phoebe to a small office she'd never been to. Its only occupants were 2 chairs, a table, and a faded bloodstain on the floor. The closed door made the room suffocating. Commander Wilcox took her time to sit and pull a crisp file from her bag, open it, fold her hands neatly, waiting for Phoebe to sit down. Unarmed and unprepared, Phoebe took a seat. Wilcox began to read the contents of the file. Phoebe Weiss, age 19 years old, born in Arizona with a genetic condition that resulted in total deafness in both ears. Imprisoned for weapons manufacture and inciting violence with the creation of a weapon known publicly as the Hellraiser. The word made her flinch. It's estimated for the short time the weapon was on the market, it resulted in the death of 131 people. You received a sentence of 113 years, of which you have only served 2 complete years. She raised a manicured eyebrow. You've got a long way to go. What did this person want? What were they trying to do by flashing her past in her face? She could feel a presence behind her, a ghost of one of her victims taunting her. Why are you telling me shit I already know? Commander Wilcox looked her up and down. Do you hear much about the world outside this prison? What? No. The world is ruthless. The rising global temperatures create dangers we cannot fix. Attempts to heal the ozone layers have proven unsuccessful. Our ancestors failed us and left us with no way to fix our mistakes. Now we're subject to natural disasters too extreme to recover from, sea levels rising while other water sources dry up, temperatures too high for the body to tolerate. Reality is starting to set in. People are getting more scared and thus more desperate. That's dangerous. Yeah, I know that much. The world was like that before I got locked up. Let me tell you something you don't know. Information not disclosed to the public. Wilcox folded her hands on the desk. Whether we like to admit it to ourselves or not, we all know Earth won't be inhabitable for much longer. For a long time, we didn't know how much longer we had. My team, amongst others, has conjured a solid estimation. 34 years. Phoebe's body froze. 34 years? 34 years wasn't even a lifetime. Humanity would soon be dead. It's an alarming figure, Wilcox continued. Temperature-regulated buildings are under construction, but they can only prolong human life for so long. The construction of these buildings means there must be a ranking of who gets access to these places first. Society's been categorized in order of importance. How much money they can pay often sways where someone stands. Guessing you can figure out for yourself where you rank on the list? Pretty damn low. Precisely. No one wants to be stuck inside with a criminal. Look, please. Phoebe pulled at her hair. Can you explain why you're telling me all this? You said it yourself. I'm just some criminal to people like you. Incorrect. I see you as a set of skills I need. Skills? Though you use these skills for criminal activity, I recognize you have the abilities of a skilled mechanic and engineer. I need a mechanic for a mission I'm preparing. Wilcox flipped a couple of pages in the file until it landed on a picture. She slid it across the table. The image of a small planet came into view, one Phoebe didn't recognize. It was a peachy orange color, and it seemed to glow softly as if surrounded by a halo. What planet is this? Me Elpis, Wilcox said, a small smile on her face. She was discovered about 100 years ago through a wormhole located near Saturn. NASA only recently had a craft stable enough to pass through the wormhole and retrieve more information on her. Phoebe's brow furrowed. Wait, NASA? thought NASA lost all its funding and shut down. That was what the public was led to believe. However, we managed to keep all our assets, including our spacecraft. When we realized how dire the situation was on Earth, we decided to use our expertise to find an out-of-world solution. Is that what Elpis is? Indeed, Elpis is capable of supporting human life. The facts slowly started to form together in Phoebe's mind. You think Elpis could be our new Earth? Wilcox nodded. Indeed. I'm a representative from NASA, assembling a mission to go to Elpis and establish life there. I want you to be a part of that mission. Yes, my throat is at its limit. End scene. Bro, reading words out loud takes so much longer than just reading them in your head. I forgot. That's the first chapter of my novel. I hope it was somewhat decent. This is probably going to be a very long video, so genuinely thank you if you have stuck through to the end to listen to this part. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. It helps me know that people still want to see writing content on this channel. If you are interested in seeing writing updates from me more frequently than appears on YouTube, you can follow my Instagram at Amelia Rose Corner. And yeah, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a video. And that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Bye!